Welcome to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers with Linda Prio. Will it be possible to remain in my home as I age? Do I feel safe in my home? How do I figure out how much support I will need when my health needs start to change? What if I decide to move into a community instead? Which community will meet my needs now and in the future? Who will play a role in helping me with decision making? Do you ask yourself these same questions? Aging in Place Strategies and Answers can help you gain practical knowledge that will help you create your own Aging in Place roadmap. If you are already a care partner, a power of attorney, or in crisis mode with your Aging in Place strategy, you will learn what you need to know that you don't know. For over 20 years, I have been marketing Aging in Place services to clients and educating families and healthcare professionals in how to put aging in place strategies into place. When you utilize aging in place, you are allowed to choose where you want to live and make those decisions so that you can retain your quality of life. Hello, listeners. This is your host, Linda Prio, with Aging in Place Strategies and Answers. And I actually borrowed the title for this podcast, and I think you're going to love it because it's a double entendre or a double meaning. But the topic I'm using today is marijuana use by seniors reaches a new high. And so it's okay if you laugh, if you're in your car, wherever you're listening to this podcast or on a walk and you start laughing to yourself, because I sure did when I saw that title being used in an AARP magazine article. And really, that's one of the reasons why I created this podcast, is because I was very interested in the article and how more seniors or older adults are actually using marijuana, and what we don't know or not being aware of risks or even much about the use of marijuana could really be cause for us to learn some more information. And of course, you know, that's what I'm good at, is educating you on what you need to know so that you can be successful and make wise decisions. So that is one reason why I decided to do a podcast on adults over 55, or the senior adult who is actually starting to use marijuana, whether it's for recreational use or for medical use. There was another key factor that got me thinking about drug use or marijuana use among senior adults. And that's because when you go to the doctor now, Medicare asks a question when they are checking you in for your visit with your doctor. And the first question is, how much alcohol do you consume? And then you get to choose from 3 answers. 1, not at all. 2, maybe 1 to 2 drinks a day or on the weekend, or more than 3 to 5 drinks a week. The other question, and I thought it was just interesting the way the medical tech asked the question is, well, do you take any drugs for fun, or do you take drugs for fun? And I just had to take a minute and look at the person who was asking the question. And of course, I knew what my response was going to be. But of course, the thought then is, well, what kind of drugs are they talking about? So my brain had to do those calculations, and it came up with the fact that I think they're asking me if I do marijuana or something else. So very interesting that this has appeared. And this is not the first time I've heard the question, but it just really struck a bell in my head with the use of marijuana going up, the statistics showing that more and more seniors are using it. And now it is on a Medicare questionnaire that you may be asked when you go to the doctor. And I know that the questions on alcohol use and marijuana use or drug use for fun, recreational drugs, are not meant to be nosy or judgmental, but really they are asking you as the patient to be transparent with your medical provider. In other words, you are educating your medical provider in what you take that they have not prescribed, whether that's supplements, whether that's alcohol, whether that's recreational drugs, because how will you or myself receive appropriate treatment if my medical team or your medical team doesn't really know what your recreational habits are, especially when it comes to other drugs or herbal remedies, even recreational drugs? Okay, so that was another reason why I decided that this topic was important. And then, of course, the latest statistics from leafwell.com, which is a dispensary, they are showing that the number of seniors using marijuana has risen 46%, which is substantial. So I thought it was worthwhile for us to take a look at who's using marijuana, why it's being used, and then to really get our heads around what we're talking about here. And what I mean by that is, do you and do I really understand what CBD is and THC? And that way we're not confused when or if you decide to use the products, but also by understanding the differences, you will know perhaps what product might be best for you. So let's talk about CBD first, and it's CBD as a non-psychoactive, no high producing, but a pain relief, anxiety reducing oil and anti-inflammatory. Now, THC is something totally different. It is the part of the cannabis plant that produces the high or the intoxicating effects associated with marijuana use. And it can also produce anxiety, paranoia, impaired judgment, and all of this can occur, especially at higher doses. Now, I also learned as I did my research that there are a variety of ways that these products can be used. The one that is most common, of course, is smoking. And that creates a fast-acting drug, but it can also promote lung damage because obviously we know that smoking does cause damage to our lungs. But with smoking, there is the probability that there could be an inconsistent dose. And because the product is being smoked, it could also produce toxic byproducts. Another way to use CBD, THC, these marijuana products, is by vaping it. And this is also a fast-acting way to get the drug into the system, but there is less concern about lung damage, and it appears that the dosing seems to be a little bit more consistent or standardized. There are also oil and capsules, which provide consistent dosing, but the effects are slower. However, they are in your system longer. So as you can see, it's important for us to know the difference between CBD and THC, but it's just as important for us to understand the different ways that these drugs can be utilized. There are also edibles, which have varying absorption rate because we are all different people with all different kinds of metabolisms. And of course, age is a factor in some of that as well. And then even folks that have used marijuana before have said that there is more inconsistent dosing with edibles and varying effects. So just to be aware of that. And then, of course, there is a topical way to use the products, but generally there is a poor absorption rate, which requires more products or a higher dose to achieve pain relief. Which you might be wanting to achieve from a topical solution. So CBD is a non-psychoactive, no high, and it can produce pain relief, reduce anxiety, and anti-inflammatory in your body. But THC is the part of the cannabis plant that you would need to be aware of the side effects of that, and then determining the best way to then utilize the product, whether it was smoking, vaping, capsules, edibles, or a topical relief. Well, I just had to ask the question, why are more seniors turning to marijuana? And the three reasons I learned are that number one, legalization, number two, availability, and acceptance of use. So just to be clear, alcohol and marijuana are both drugs, but with the rise of legalized marijuana dispensaries, there is more availability as well as legalization. 40 states in the United States have been approved for medical use, and 24 states have been approved for recreational use, which is why more seniors have availability to the product and are starting to experiment with the products. I don't know about you, but where I live, there are dispensaries on about every corner, and many of them have clever names. I'll look at a name and I'll think, wow, I wonder what business that is. And sure enough, it'll have the cannabis leaf on there or the plant, and I will know immediately that that's a dispensary. So they are really very prevalent and available to many people. But cannabis has gained acceptance because of the legalization. And because it has been legalized and seniors have been taking regular pharmaceuticals for medical conditions or mental health treatments, people have grown restless with the way they feel or with the way their pharmaceutical options are causing them to feel, or maybe they aren't receiving the desired effect. And so now there is more of a thought process amongst senior adults that maybe it's time to try something new. So legalization, availability, and acceptance. Cannabis has been seen as a reasonable solution and a viable treatment option for some conditions. So more seniors are exploring the plant to enhance their overall quality of life, to perhaps improve the way they sleep, even manage pain, or to improve bone density. In fact, research shows that seniors are among the fastest growing group of medical marijuana users nationwide. Now, a word from our sponsor.
Are you looking for resources on senior living? Check out guideforseniorliving.com for our free online senior resource guide to find senior housing, care, and community connections. Start searching now at guide Number 4, seniorliving.com. That's guideforseniorliving.com to find the contact information for senior housing, care, and community connections.
Now let's return to the podcast. As I mentioned, 40 states have been approved to offer marijuana for medical use. But there is an application process that you must go through that does vary by state in order to qualify for a medical marijuana card. So if you drive up to a dispensary and you want to try it, you're going to have to get approved for this medical marijuana card that is different from state to state. So I'm just going to give you a broad overview of what might be included in this application process. Number 1, that you have to be a resident of a state with a medical marijuana program. And you must have a qualifying medical condition. And states have specific lists of medical conditions that help you qualify for medical marijuana treatment. These specific lists include medical conditions such as cancer, chronic pain, epilepsy, glaucoma, HIV/AIDS, and debilitating psychiatric disorders that have been diagnosed by a state licensed psychiatrist. You will also have to obtain a physician's certification showing that you have a qualifying condition that medical marijuana could be an effective treatment option. And then once you complete an application, then you are registered with the state's medical marijuana program. Please be aware that these products have costs associated with them, and they are not covered by your medical insurance. It is also important to note that while patients are desperate to get relief from some of the pain and debilitating psychiatric disorders, but also the other conditions that I mentioned. However, there is a lack of scientific evidence that shows that these products actually do help. So you're going to want to do your own research. From phi.org, yet there is limited scientific evidence, warns the CDC, that supports the idea that the drug effectively treats most types of acute or chronic pain, despite pain control being one of the most common reasons for using marijuana. A national poll on healthy aging showed that older adults are increasingly turning to cannabis to alleviate pain, get help with sleep, improve mental health, or cope with other medical conditions, while only 31% reported true recreational use, with the highest use being to relax, feel good, and improve mood. So most are using it for medical reasons, but there is a good percentage that are also using it for recreational purposes. But the reality is that you're going to want to do your research and to see what some of the potential side effects could be from using a drug like marijuana. Because the use of any drug is not without risk or side effects. But let's look at some of the facts that are being reported as the use of marijuana, whether it's medical or recreational use, increases among seniors. Aaron Bonar from the University of Michigan, an addiction psychologist, says that the rise in the number of senior adults using marijuana is causing some concern. First of all, she says that older adults are at higher risk for some of the drug's side effects. And what is the safest way to use the product? Is there any information or guidance being given to senior adults about the best way to use the product? And remember, I mentioned 5 or 6 different ways. And then the other thing she brought up is that there are no recommended guidelines. So remember that usually when you buy or you receive a pharmaceutical, there are usually recommended guidelines and safe ways to use the product. So here we are, just in one way that we want to have our eyes wide open when we would use a product that doesn't have this. And this doctor, who was an addiction psychologist, is bringing this forward for us to think about. This is the study that was mentioned in AARP about emergency room visits, that in California between 2005 and 2019, with the study being published in 2023, they identified a 1,808% increase in the rate of cannabis-related trips to the emergency room department amongst California adults 65 years and older. Researchers used a trend analysis of data from the Department of Healthcare Access and Information and found that cannabis-related ER visits increased steadily for those 65 and over. And a Canadian study also found an increase in cannabis-related ER visits after edibles were legalized in 2020. And I mentioned edibles as being one of the ways that you could use marijuana, but the reports are saying that edibles can cause a powerful and an intense high, and it is possible to overdose without realizing it because they are slower to release. The other thing is that the dosage in edibles is not regulated from gummy to gummy, and edible products are stronger than people realized. In fact, some of those who were regular marijuana users have reported that these gummies or edibles are stronger, and they can produce nausea, vomiting, dry mouth, drowsiness with dizziness, increased falls, and impaired coordination, the increased risk of falling, trouble standing or walking, hallucinations, rapid heartbeat, anxiety or panic attacks, confusion, and delusions. Listeners, I'm going to leave you there because I know that we have more to talk about. So please look for part 2 of adult seniors using marijuana reaches a brand new high. Thank you for joining me today. Please remember that this podcast is intended as education and not advice. Don't forget to share this podcast with family, friends, or colleagues who want to learn how to age in place, but also share this with those who find themselves in crisis mode. Please go to my website, seniorsupportstrategies.com, for more information. When you subscribe to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers, you gain access to premium content and professional tips on creating your own Aging in Place roadmap. As always, I value the time you spend with me.